What is up, mortals? Here it is Hazel here with a new video for you. In this video we'll be covering the Quincy and their specialized army of the Wanderweich. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, just sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So let's get started.
Yukuzo.
Since Bleach by Tite Kubo will finally get a continuation to its anime, we thought to cover the basics of what you'll be expecting from the 1000-year Blood War arc. We'll be covering the Quincy, the significance of the story, and how they evolve into the Wanderweich. Quincy's have an interesting relationship with the world of Bleach. Originally, it was thought that Uryu Ishida, his father, and his late grandfather were the only known Quincy. It was also thought that Quincy's were the weakest faction. But soon we'll see that we could not be more wrong about that assumption. But warning, spoilers further along for the manga and definitely for the anime, so be on the lookout. Trust me, you have been warned. Before we cover what Quincy's are in general, we need a brief overview of Bleach. The story starts with Ichigo Kurosaki, a human with the incredible power to see spirits, is visited by the spirit Ruika Kochiki. Rukia explains that she is a special spirit known as a Shinigami, or Soul Reaper, and that she is on the hunt for a hollow, an incredibly evil spirit that preys on and consumes the souls of spirits and even humans alike. She explains that she could normally sense this creature's spiritual pressure, but something seems to be blocking it. During this explanation, they are attacked by the spirit, and Rukia is heavily injured. Unable to fight the spirit by herself, Rukia notices that Ichigo is the source of immense spiritual pressure that kept her from finding the hollow. In desperation, she offers to let Ichigo borrow her powers in exchange for saving them all from the hollow. Ichigo agrees, but accidentally takes in all her power, becoming her substitute Shinigami in protecting spirits and humans alike from hollows. Those who have read or watched the series know that things get far more complex as the story continues. Bleach has several factions and beings. There are normal people, like you and me, with no powers, no special abilities, and some people who may have the ability to feel or even see spirits, but otherwise have no abilities. 'Tis a sad, sad story. But then we have spirits called holes, those who have died, either passed on immediately to heaven or hell, or whose regrets keep them tethered to the world of the living, like that of a chain. Higher on the totem pole are Fullbringers, humans exposed to spiritual pressure brought upon by exposure to hollows, who gain astounding supernatural abilities when using items they are tied to on a personal and spiritual level. An example of Fullbringers will be Orihime Inoue, or Enyasutora, Chad, Sado, people whose powers are very similar to that of a hollow. When a hole's chain is eaten away because they've been in the world of the living for too long, they turn into a hollow, a ravenous spirit constantly hunting for and consuming the souls of the living and the dead to fill their hunger, emptiness, and loneliness. To stop those hollows from killing and eating those of the living and those of the dead, the spirits of the spirit world form a society and send out powerful warriors known as Soul Reapers to subdue the hollows. A group of hollows, led by Sosuke Aizen, through the power of the Hogyoku, increase their powers by becoming more like Soul Reapers, turning a part of their mask into Zanpakuto. On the opposite end of the spectrums, Wizards are Soul Reapers that either by choice or by force were given hollow powers through artificial hollification. Soul Reapers are not the only faction that fights against hollows, leading us to our last faction and the concentration of today's video, the Quincy. Quincy's are a special group of humans descended from an ancient being by the name of Yuhabach. Quincy, literally translating to monks of destruction, are living beings that can detect spirits, both hollows and other souls, and use their powers to combat and eradicate hollows. Quincy has the power to manipulate spiritual energy, known as Reishi, to create weapons. As opposed to Soul Reapers and hollows who naturally generate spirit energy, Quincy's absorb the power from the atmosphere, often transforming it into projectile weapon bows to then launch spirit arrows at their targets. Before we continue, we have to give one last warning. We're about to get into major spoiler territory. Just know that you've been warned. Shinigami do more than just cut down the hollows to keep people safe. Their actions are instrumental to the balance between the world of the living and soul society. Both worlds require a certain amount of souls within them to maintain a level of balance. If one side has too many souls, the two sides merge, causing a literal apocalypse. If that happens, a new world would exist where both life and death cease to be, a strange alien limbo, inhospitable and unkind to those who lived in the world before. The task of the Soul Reaper is to ferry souls from the living world to the afterlife after the person dies. They are also tasked with purifying hollows and sending them to the afterlife as well. The weapon of Shinigami, their Zanbakuto, is the instrument that allows them to purify the hollow. Quincy's do not have Zanbakutos, meaning that when they attack a hollow, they do not purify the souls, but rather annihilate them, erasing them from existence and leaving their spirit energy in the realm they were slain. If too many spirits are dealt with that way, it causes one side to be too heavy, resulting in the aforementioned apocalypse. Quincy's are aware of this dynamic, but due to their historical victimization at the hands of hollows, Quincy's have had a policy of strict extermination. This difference between Soul Reapers and Quincy could be seen as a difference between justice and vengeance, which is further exacerbated when we learn that as opposed to normal humans, a Quincy attacked and infected by a hollow loses their powers and eventually has their soul destroyed, unable to even pass on. Due to the tensions between Shinigami and Quincy, several wars broke out between the two groups. 1,000 years before the start of the series, the Quincy's king, Yuhabak, attempted to invade the Soul Society. After a long and bloody war, Yuhabak was defeated and invaded. 200 years before the start of the story, the Soul Reapers decided that the Quincy were still too much of a problem when it came to the balance of the world and decided to get rid of them. They committed mass genocide, keeping only enough families alive to keep the Quincy culture alive, but taking so many lives that the Quincy would eventually die out. This video is sponsored by Adobe. Adobe is redefining the digital experience through game-changing innovations that shape the next generation of storytelling. Adobe makes it easy to create, edit, and share digital documents securely, allowing you to collaborate and communicate across devices. Adobe Photoshop is your go-to application for raster graphics, editing, and digital art as a whole. At We the Celestials, all our thumbnails across every channel are created with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based and non-linear video editing software application that is versatile and easy for beginning and master editors. Finally, Adobe After Effects is the industry standard tool for digital visual effects, motion graphics, and compositing applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and compositing applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and video editors use Premiere Pro and After Effects to produce these high-quality videos. Click the link in the description to start creating now. And thank you to Adobe for sponsoring this video. Alrighty, back to the video. Despite the bloodshed, some Quincy's believed that they should still help Soul Reapers. They reasoned that while they shouldn't kill the Hollows, they could hold back the Hollows, allowing Reapers to arrive and take care of the Hollows after the Quincy make sure their fellow humans are safe. Unfortunately, the Soul Reapers, many of whom still held a grudge over the war from 1,000 years ago, often ignored the Quincy, waiting for them to die, or even outright ignoring the Hollows and targeting supposedly more dangerous Hollows while the Quincy's numbers continued to dwindle. One of the last Quincy that still believed in cohesion between their people and Soul Reapers was Uryo's grandfather, Soken Ishida. Unfortunately, the latter was slain by a group of Hollows when Soul Reapers arrived too late to the battle. Uryo Ishida, like his grandfather before him, carries on the traditions of old-school Quincy's. They utilize light bows constructed from spiritual energy, wear the traditional white robes, and utilize the standard combat abilities of the Quincy. Outside of their bow shooting, Quincy's utilize the Hirenkyaku, letting them move at high speeds for short distances, in a technique very similar in results to the Soul Reaper's Shunpu, and the Arrancar Sonido. They also had the ability Blunt Vene, a technique that allowed them to insert reishi directly into their blood to increase their attack and defense power. One of the most impressive abilities of the Quincy, however, was Shadow, an ability that allowed them to utilize shadows to twist and hide them from detection. This latter technique is used by the Wanderweich, but we'll get to them soon. For the longest time in the series, the Quincy's were seen as the weakest of the spirit-sensing and spirit-battling beings when compared to Shinigami and Hollows. With the introduction of more and more powerful beings in the Arrancars and Espada, and with the full Bring arc introducing a formal name and definition for the powers of characters like Orihime and Chad, Quincy's were seldom thought of as anything special by the fandom. That was when the Wanderweich, literally translated as the Walled or Hidden Empire, made its way into Soul Society, ironically by revealing that they've been at the sides of the Soul Reapers, hidden from the Shinigami, hiding in the shadows and waiting for the return of their king. At the beginning of the 1,000-year Blood War arc, the Hidden Empire reveals itself, hiding in the shadows of the Seretai, the main city of Soul Society. Using the Quincy's shadow powers, they hid in a special pocket dimension, biding their time and becoming stronger. The Quincy had a legend, a song known as Kaiser Jesang, aka the Emperor Song. The legend speaks of Yuhabach, the king of the Quincy who was sealed by Soul Society. In 900 years, the king would regain his heart. In 90 years, his intelligence would return. And in 9 years, his power would return. This ties into the lore of the main timeline, as when Ichigo was a young child, Yuhabach used his abilities to collect the spiritual energy from all of the impure Quincy of the world to begin recovering his power. Yuhabach states that the song has an additional part, that in 9 days, the emperor who has regained his powers will regain the world. With those words, the invasion of the Seretai begins, with perhaps the most shocking development occurring right near the beginning, the taking of the captain's powers and the death of several members of the Gotai 13. I'm going to put a little warning for myself and for the audience's sake. A lot of these words are in German and I will mispronounce them. I apologize. The Wanderweich are split into several groups. Starting with their leaders, we have the Sturmritter, German for Stark Knights, are a group of elite Quincy combatants. They are led by Jugram Haswatch, their Grandmaster and second highest in command in the Wanderweich. Each Sturmritter is given a letter designation alongside a power. For example, Jugram, the second in command, is given the letter designation of B for the Balance, which is both his title and summarization of his power. Sturmritters each have different powers that vary in ability and usefulness. Boss B has the Schrift of H, the heat which allows him to control fire and heat in general. Some Sturmritters have conceptual powers, like Bero is called the X-axis allowing him to destroy anything between 2 points in space without firing any projectiles, causing instant annihilation. These warriors are the Wanderweich's equivalent to the Gotai's 13th captains, similar in the way to how the Arrancar has their Espada, and are the elite troops who struck first, leading their enemy. The next group of Quincy's we'll be covering are the Jagdarmi, literally meaning hunting corps or hunt army. They were the Quincy tasked with attacking and enslaving Hueco Mundo to serve the Empire. Of course, as Quincy's hate Hollows, the Hollows were treated as lower than dirt by the Quincy's. The Jagadarmin were led by their executive hunting captain, Quilg Opai. The general military of the Wanderweich is comprised of elite skilled warriors known as Soldat, the holy soldiers or divine warriors of the Wanderweich. These warriors are capable of defeating low-ranked Shinigami with ease, putting them around the rank of seated Shinigami up to baseline vice captain level. Another large portion of the army was comprised of the aforementioned Arrancars, who had their Zangbactos stripped away and were given Quincy crosses, allowing them to form spirit weapons. Also unnamed is a unit of Quincy responsible for communication between Quincy HQ and their operational units. These Quincy are not to be looked down on. They have spent 1,000 years preparing for the day they could take vengeance on the Soul Society, both for their losses in their first war and for the near genocide of their people in the world of the living 200 years ago. Viewers should be in for a fantastic, heart-pumping season. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials have got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime, with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.